It all started in 2016 when Sri Lanka approached IMF for another $1.5 billion loan on a condition that it will reduce its fiscal deficit to 3.5% by 2022. Now, what is fiscal deficit? Is nothing but the difference between the expenses and the revenue. Now, what were the situations which led to today's the Sri Lankan crisis? Let us see in this video. Welcome back, guys. This is your friend Shreeya, and today we'll see the reasons behind the Sri Lankan crisis. Now, first, before understanding that, we'll quickly see what are the revenue sources of Sri Lanka. The first one being the exports of tea and rubber. Sri Lanka is very good and it exports tea and rubber. Then the second source is revenues, and the third source is tourism. Around 10% of the GDP is being contributed by this tourism sector. Let us now quickly see what are the reasons of the economic crisis. As we all know that Sri Lanka since 2016 and before that also it was in debt. The major reason struck was the situation, which was a mental situation and a disastrous one. In 2019, the first one, the Easter bombing took place in Sri Lanka, for which the tourism hesitated to go, and therefore the tourism declined. The second reason, COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 pandemic hit Sri Lanka very badly, because of which also the revenue fell, the exports fell, tourism fell, and remittances. Sri Lanka also receives remittances, so that also fell. The reason for this is that the Sri Lankan government was changed. Now, before going into government, let us first understand the structure of the government and what led to this major crisis. The whole point of Sri Lankan crisis revolves around this third point. When Gotabaya Rajapaksa became the president of Sri Lanka, there were two major decisions which were taken. The first one being the 13th Constitutional Amendment and the 20th Constitutional Amendment. Now, the 20th Constitutional Amendment was most important one because it gave enormous powers to the president. It diminished the powers of the prime minister. It held the president to be the only authority who can dismiss the parliament after 2 years of its functioning. Then the president can appoint any person to the office of the government, be it the departments of corruption, bribery, then public services, HR, everything. So we can see that ultimately all these powers went into the hand of the president. That is, Sri Lanka transitionally moved from democracy to an authoritarian regime, we can call, wherein the power were concentrated into one single person hand. Now this we can see and we can take a lesson from it, that it is very dangerous. Always democracy is preferred over all other forms of government. Now what happened because of this? President got enormous powers, and the Rajapaksa family, who was hereditarily controlling and governing Sri Lanka since 1983, when the Sri Lankan Tamil and Sinhalese conflict started. So since that time there were huge corruptions. Till today also the main reason for it is internal corruption. Internal corruption can actually take the country into a complete downslide. In this, the president also got the power to fire the MPs or the member of the parliament, and he even got a say in the re-election, that and everything was into president's hand. So what happened then is, when they felt that Sri Lanka is facing a major economic trouble, the overnight decision of the Sri Lankan government to ban the import or cut down their expenses on import of fertilizers, which amount to around 0.3% of their GDP, and completely changing their agriculture in overnight to organic farming. So this was a decision which proved miserably bad, because then what happened is food crisis. On large amount, food crisis started happening. So what happened? More and more inflation started. Today we can see that the public debt on Sri Lanka is 110%, 110% of its GDP, and the inflation is around 15%. Now, these are the major reasons. As we have seen in near past, that China is getting closer and closer to Sri Lanka. It is because of the fact that Sri Lanka is hesitant to borrow loan from IMF, as it has to keep some collateral with IMF, and IMF is also not easily giving loan to Sri Lanka because it fear of defaulting. So we can see that the China's policy of putting everybody under its debt so that it can get more monopoly over the trade, and therefore Sri Lanka also kept close contacts with China, Japan, and it borrowed money from the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and we can see more and more debt piling up on it. Today, India has also made $1 billion help to Sri Lanka, but it is at such a point, it is literally not going to help them a lot, because if we see the prices of the petrol, the prices of all the essential items like milk, tea, all have shot up, literally shot up, and even the exams of the students have been cancelled as the paper shortage has been felt. So if we see what are the ways to tackle this out. If Sri Lanka wants to tackle this out, there are only two ways, as told by experts, which are: first one is debt restructuring. Let me give a simple example. Means if I have n loans from n number of people, then to repay the loan or to settle the loan, I will take another loan and nullify my current loan, or either sell my assets and nullify the current loan. So this is debt restructuring. So Sri Lanka is in grave need of this debt restructuring. And the next one is to take IMF relief package. It gives relief packages, but since Sri Lanka's closeness to China is increased and it has no collateral, or its economic return value is also doubtful, therefore IMF might be a little bit taken back to give loan. So these are the only ways, and we hope that Sri Lanka gets out of this situation very soon. From this all crisis, we get to learn one point, that never ever an authoritarian or undemocratic government is suitable. Corruption must be tackled. All the powers in one hand shouldn't be there, and all the policies together contribute to a nation's progress or its downfall. So thank you for watching this video, and if you like the video, please hit the subscribe button and give a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.